morning, good afternoon, good evening. In my one of WhatsApp groups I am in, I seem to have provoked a lot of individuals when I wrote that anyone who thinks that VP Chiwenga is a Democrat is stupid. I think it is a fact because we already have the evidence that General Chiwenga is just as corrupt, incompetent, tyrannical, and a vote-rigging thug as Mnangagwa or Mugabe before him. The mistake we made in 2017 of thinking that replacing Mugabe with Mnangagwa will end our problems. We cannot afford to repeat that again. As much as we wanted Mugabe to go, we should have been smart enough to realize that replacing one dictator with another changes nothing. That is exactly what happened. We're not going to repeat the same mistake again in seeking to replace Mnangagwa with Chiwenga. We should learn from our past mistakes. That was a mistake, and we should learn from it. But one of the respondent, that is what he wrote, and this is what he said.
Mukori, I think umuntu akadzidza kana tichiita debate uya nesolution yako because mumwe akauya nesolution yako iwe chiuya nesolution yako. For example, vanhu tiri kuti Chiwenga is better, handiti iwe uri kuti Chiwenga has better, handiti nezvikonzero zvako is fine, but chiuya nesolution yako kuti ndingi ndiyari better, handiti because iwe ukatouya padebate usina solution kuti who is better than Chiwenga, totally ndiwo unenge uchitorasika. Because ngatiite debate tichiudzana chokwadi kuti Chiwenga has right, but munhu ari better ndinhingi, ndimukori ndiye ari better, handiti than kuti Chiwenga has right. Saka ari right ndiani manje? Because uri kusiya pari blank, zvakafanana kuti 1 + 1 wongoti equals, ungosiya pakadaro. Saka afoira ndiani? Anenge afoira ndiwe manje, handiti?
I'll leave it there. So the discussion then turned to, if you're going to come up with a comment like Chiwenga is no good, you should name the alternative. I think this is a very simplistic and dangerous way of handling a complex issue. Take, for example, if somebody was to ask who was the British Prime Minister in 1770, and somebody said it was Tony Blare. Many of us out there know that it wasn't Tony Blare. And I think we'll be right to say, no, it wasn't Tony Blare. Do I know who it is? I don't know. But I know it wasn't Tony Blare. So to say that if you don't know who was the Prime Minister in 1770, you should not correct somebody who gives the wrong answer and say it's Tony Blare, for instance. It is the right answer, and we should be prepared to accept it. Why is it not Tony Blare? Because you can tell them that Tony Blare was Prime Minister very recently. That is not 1770. And then we should be objective enough and smart enough to say, okay, let's go back and do our research and find out who was Prime Minister in 1770. The same applies to here. He agrees that Chiwenga is corrupt, incompetent, and a tyrant. I mean, God knows we've got all the evidence for that. Chiwenga and Mnangagwa were named as the two individuals who were behind the electoral coup of 2008. They are the ones who went to Mugabe and told him, you are not going anywhere. Stay where you are. And then they went ahead and orchestrated the Operation Mafotera Papi. Is that the acts of a Democrat? Operation Mafotera Papi was meant to punish the Zimbabwean people because they dared to reject ZANU-PF. They blatantly cheated the vote count of the March vote, whittled down Tsvangirai's win of 73% to 47%, enough to force the runoff. And during the runoff, the country witnessed some of the worst election-related violence in our history. Even SADC and the AU refused to recognize Mugabe as the winner of that runoff, forcing the regime into the GNU. In 2017, the two musketeers were back. They were the ones behind the military coup. And at the end of it, Mnangagwa became president. Chiwenga became vice president. They promised to hold free, fair, and credible elections. We all know that 2018 elections were rigged. Chiwenga himself is on record saying that he will crush the opposition like fleas. Is that the language of a Democrat? We have the evidence showing that all his talk about corruption, Skananda, he is just as corrupt as Mnangagwa and the rest of the ZANU-PF teams. He has fallen out with some of those Skanandas, and now he is denouncing them. And we should not be so naive as to believe that he has changed. So the issue of Chiwenga being corrupt, incompetent, and a murderous thug is on record. It's a historic fact. And to say, oh, okay, we want somebody to replace Mnangagwa, we'll put Chiwenga's name forward. Unless you can come up with another name, you should not say Chiwenga will be a disaster. Of course he'll be a disaster. I can't come up with another name because we've got also to accept that Zimbabwe's political system is so rotten. It is hard to see competent leaders emerging out of this system. It's like fishing in a sewage pond. You cannot get quality fish from a sewage pond. We have got to recognize the system, the political system that ZANU-PF has created and imposed on the nation is rotten to the core. It's meant to produce thugs. You have to be a thug to be a successful politician in Zimbabwe. Those are not the men and women we want to lead the country. So let's change the system. This is where the democratic reforms come in. We've been talking about we need to implement democratic reforms to ensure free, fair, and credible elections, open debate, democratic discourse. Those are the environment, that is the environment which will encourage quality leaders to emerge. To insist that we must have an alternative name out of the present political system is to insist that you should catch quality fish from a sewage pond. The problem with some people is that they do not appreciate a complex problem. They want everything to be simplified to 1 + 1 is equal to 2. Life is not that simple. When you're dealing with political issues like they are complex, and to expect a simple solution that you can name one alternative leader today and tomorrow Zimbabwe will be a prosperous democratic nation is naive, to say the least. And it is that kind of naivety that has got us into this mess. Do not expect a simple solution, a quick fix to a complex problem. Zimbabwe is a failed state. Turning it around is not going to take a week or a month or a year. It's going to take a long time. We have got to start by implementing the democratic reforms to create an environment in which quality leaders can start to emerge. If you want quality leaders now, out of the same corrupt and dysfunctional political system, then you'll never get out of this mess. To insist that Chiwenga, we must follow Chiwenga just because we can't produce another name is idiotic, to say the least. Particularly when you agree that Chiwenga is corrupt, incompetent, and a murderous thug. We need to be a lot smarter. And we need to remind some of our simple-minded people, members out there, that if you expect a simple solution that will have the country's problems solved by the end of the year, then you're bound to get the wrong solution. If all you're interested in is to remove Mnangagwa and don't care who you put in his place, then you're just repeating the same idiotic mistake that the nation made in 2017. Yes, we replaced one dictator, Robert Mugabe, with another. But what end and purpose? Because the economic meltdown, if anything, has got even worse because corruption under Mnangagwa has gone into overdrive. And while Mugabe did not have the guts to carry out some of the heinous acts of oppression, Mnangagwa does not hesitate. Mugabe sent Mnangagwa as his henchman to carry out the Kukurahundi, the 2008 electoral coup. It turned out that Mugabe was not even involved. He was himself coerced into it. And of course, Mugabe became the victim of the 2017 military coup. And if we think that Mnangagwa will hesitate for a minute to drag the nation into another bloodbath to hang on to power, we are wrong. And by the same token, if we were to elect Chiwenga into power, I wouldn't put it beyond him to carry out the same bloodbath that Mnangagwa is prepared to carry out. We need to make progress, not to keep on shuffling and recycling the same deadwood. Mugabe was a dictator, but so was Mnangagwa, and so is Chiwenga. He is not suitable to, he is not presidential material. Let's go out there and change the political system, drain the sewage pond, put clean water in it, and we will get quality leaders. We need to think outside the box. And we need to realize that this is a complex issue. And stop expecting simple solutions. This is not 1 + 1 = 2. It's much more complex than that. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.